So we dedicate this presentation to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So you can join me with the Guru Pranam and the Mangala Charan. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padahan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Pangor Mama Manda Matirgati Mat Sarvasva Padam Bujau Radha Madanamo Divyad Brindaranya Kalpa Drumadaha Srimat Ratnagara Simhasanasto Srimat Radha Srila Govinda Deva Prashtali Vihi Sevyamano Smarami Sriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivatas Karshan Venur Svanair Gopir Gopinata Shrishtunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Shatarini Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vikna Vinashana Samharitanamini Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayatim Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Sri Guru Duratarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Mishwaram Narayanam Namaskrityam Narum Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavatir naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam sukamukaram mridadrava samyutam vibhata bhagavatam rasam malayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandalaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangre. So Hare Krishna everyone, welcome back to our Srimad Bhagavatam discussion. We are still in chapter 6. So today we will hope to complete chapter 6. So chapter 6, the title is Conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva. So to help us remember, I will just give a quick recap of this chapter and what it was about. So if you remember, Vyasadeva was not very happy after compiling all the Vedas and all the Puranas. So then in his unhappy state, Vyasadeva appeared, Narada Muni appeared. Narada Muni appeared suddenly, his guru, and then a conversation began where Narada Muni told Vyasadeva that you have done a disservice in one sense because you have shown the path of cheating religion. So you have how to say, encouraged people towards sense gratification and materialism in the name of religion by talking a lot about karma kanda, fruitive activities. So too much has been dedicated to fruitive activity discussion in the Vedas. And here and there only you have actually spoken about the actual goal of religion, which is to develop devotion to the Supreme Lord. So now that's the reason you are feeling unhappy and dissatisfied. So now you should fully reject every other aspect and only focus on the pure devotional service to the Lord, the actual goal of religion. So after saying this, he gave a lot of theory. He gave instructions to Vyasadeva. Then that was chapter 5. Then in chapter 6, Narada Muni goes on to give example about himself. Chapter 5 also he gave example. He started talking about himself. He said, just look at me, how I have benefited so much simply by associating with the pure devotees and hearing the glorification of the Supreme Lord. So he tells about his pastime. Previous life, he was a son of a maidservant, Dasiputra, and how he was given association of the Bhakti Vedantas. You know, the Bhakti Vedantas came to his home and he had the opportunity to serve them. And in this way, he pleased them and they gave him his blessings and they gave him his prasadam. And just by that, he became purified and he was able to, his spiritual awakening took place. So you could say he was initiated by the Bhakti Vedantas. And then he talked about how from there he immediately achieved perfection. So he shortened the whole story in chapter 5. But Vyasadeva was very intelligent. He wanted to get more nectar from Narada Muni. So he questioned Narada Muni further. Please tell me more about what happened after your initiation by the Bhakti Vedantas. What did you do in your past life for you to get this wonderful spiritual body? Because Narada Muni's body is spiritual. It's not material. So more on Narada's past life as Dasiputra and the events that took place after initiation. So we heard about how Narada Muni traveled. What happened was after the Bhakti Vedantas left, one night his mother got bitten by the snake. When the mother went out to check on the cow or something, the mother got bitten by the snake and then she died. And this boy was just 5 years old and he had nobody else to protect him. He only knew his mother. But such was the instruction and the association given by the Bhakti Vedantas that he was so matured beyond his age and spiritually he was very awake. And even such a situation of his mother dying and leaving him alone and as an orphan in a world when he was only 5 years old, it didn't this situation didn't affect him at all. Such was the blessings of the power of the instruction, the spiritual instructions and blessings given by the Bhakti Vedantas. So this is what spiritual knowledge gives us. This is what spiritual potency gives us. It insulates us against reversals in life. It helps us to focus on the real goal of life. And all these reversals become a stepping stone for us to climb higher in our spiritual realization. So that's the important thing. When it's like a tree, if the tree has deep roots, when a storm hits the tree will not be dislodged because the roots go deep. So this is how Narada Muni has benefited. So then Narada Muni tells about what happened to him. He left home immediately and he started traveling all over the various parts of the countries. He went, we heard about how he passed through beautiful places, gardens, mines, villages, towns, metropolises, industries, very, very attractive places. But all these places held neither attraction nor material desire for him. He was done with material desire. He was done with material attachment. So none of these things attracted him. So he passed the test of allurement. And then after that, he walked continuously, and then he passed through forests, he passed through mountains, caves, fearsome animals were there. So neither was he afraid. He was completely surrendered to the protection of the Lord, just like a Parivrajacharya. Parivrajacharya means a wandering mendicant. It's like a sannyasi. So all this was discussed previously. And then finally, he comes to a lonely spot in a faraway forest where there was a huge banyan tree, a lone banyan tree. And then under that banyan tree, he was tired. There was a lake, a reservoir of water. He took a bath there, refreshed himself, and then he sat down and meditated on the Lord. Because of the instructions of the Bhakti Vedantas, he was already purified. He was already past the point of sin. He was already liberated, actually. He had reached liberation, and he was actually in the mood of bhava. So bhava is a very, very high stage beyond liberation, where he had natural attraction for the Lord due to his sadhana and due to his spiritual realization. So in that state, he sat and meditated, not prematurely, right? He was already in the bhava state, and then meditation is basically smaranam, to remember the Lord. So we heard about how instantaneously he was able to invoke the image of the Lord inside his heart. So we saw how darshitam rupam, the form rupam of the Lord immediately appeared within the heart. So this is again indication that the Paramatma is not impersonal. It has a form, and that's basically the goal of the yogis. So through a difficult process of yoga, one can come to this platform of invoking the Paramatma in the heart, searching for the Paramatma in the heart. But Narada Muni, by the process of devotion, very effortlessly, he was able to meditate on the Supreme Lord within his heart. So he received that darshitam rupam, and then suddenly that form of the Lord disappeared. So he was able to see the Lord's form. So it just appeared within his eyes, and then suddenly, just like that, it disappeared. So when Narada Muni saw the form of the Lord, he was in bhava, ecstasy. Tears were pouring through his eyes. His body was trembling. hair was standing on his end. All the symptoms of ecstasy were manifest on Narada Muni. And imagine suddenly that Lord disappears. So the loss that Narada Muni felt at that time was undescribable. So that's why we have this in Sikshashtakam, there is the 7th verse, right? Yugaitam nimeshana chaksusa pravarsayitam sunyaitam jagat sarvam govinda virahiname. So even a moment is like 12 years. So so that moment where the Lord disappeared, suddenly it looked like it was a big void in his life. He couldn't tolerate that separation from the Lord after experiencing that kind of ecstasy. So Govinda Virahiname, the form of Govinda was no longer present. He has lost Govinda. So then then we heard about how the Supreme Lord he spoke to Narada Muni. So there was a voice. So Bhagavan Vani means instruction. So the Lord, out of compassion, seeing how Narada Muni is devotee, at that time he wasn't Narada Muni, he is Dasiputra, right? Seeing how the small boy was basically so much in grief due to separation from the Lord spoke just to pacify him. He spoke very in a very a voice full of gravity, a very serious voice. The word used was Gambira, right? So that kind of voice, very serious voice, but at the same time very pleasing also. Slakshnaya, very pleasing voice. He spoke, and then he told Narada Muni, in this lifetime, in this janma, you will not be able to see me. And I am, and you are not able to see me. Purposely, I'm removing my vision, my darshan from you, because you are not completely purified in your desire yet. He is sinless. He is completely purified of sin. He is liberated, but his desire is not completely free of material attachment yet. There were still vestiges, because he's still Bhava stage. He has not reached the topmost stage of perfection. So just to speeden up, just to give impetus for him to reach the highest stage, the Lord, is like a preview. He shows a preview of what's awaiting him, and then he makes it disappear, so that after experiencing the form of the Lord, nothing else in this world compares. Everything else becomes gray and dull and falls short. And he sees the Lord everywhere. And at the same time, he becomes full of yearning for the Lord. So this kind of, purposely the Lord did this. And he explains that to Dasiputra also. He says, I did this purposely just to increase your kamaya for me. Kamaya means desire. I want you to increase your desire for me. And that desire is which will purify him completely. So, therefore, he disappeared. And at the same time, he gave this message to him: just carry on, continuously chant my glories and travel, and in this way, you will surely attain me. So, Bhagavan Vani, he mitigates the Dasiputra's grief. He gives instruction to evoke prema, to make the Dasiputra go to the next stage, to reach the final stage of devotion, to fully become free of all material desires. And at the same time, this is also to indicate that there is no loss. So every indication, every activity that one does in spiritual life, there is always continuation from where it stopped. Even so, therefore, this was basically what was covered up to verse 25 in chapter 6. So now we will continue with the last part of chapter 6. We will try to cover verses 29 all the way, 29 all the way to 38. So, Narada Muni continues speaking to Vyasadeva. So Narada Muni says, before that, I forgot to mention, what happened was, after Bhagavan gave the Vani, there's one more part here. We heard how Narada Muni then continued his travel, and he was completely lost in ecstasy of chanting the holy name of the Lord. And finally, he met death. So in a lonely spot, in a tree, near a tree, he met death. But his death was very different from other people's death. So it's described, for a pure devotee, death is simply a transition, an automatic, immediate transition, just like how lightning and in lightning, light and sound happens at the same time, right? Little bit of difference only, but what happens is instantaneously it occurs, lightning and the light. So in the same way, the transfer of body occurs instantaneously at the time of death. So instantaneously, Dasiputra gave up his body and received a fully spiritual body. So then we continue. This is where we stopped. So now we continue. So then Narada Muni is continuously speaking to Vyasadeva. He's giving his instructions, telling the story of his life. At Kalpa Ante, when the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, lay down, Sayane means lies down. This is the Mahavishnu form. You know, the Karana, the Kashayi Vishnu, the Vishnu in Purusha avatar, which lies down in the ocean of causes, and from whose body millions of universes come out, just like how sweat comes out from the pore of our body. In the same way, from every pore of the body of Mahavishnu, millions of universes come out like bubbles. So when Mahavishnu exhales, all the bubbles come out, all the universes are created. When Mahavishnu inhales, all the bubbles, all the universes enter back into his body. So Kalpa, this happens at the end of lifetime of Brahma. So each breathing of Mahavishnu, the inhalation and exhalation, it's the period of one lifetime of Brahma. So it's called Kalpa. Brahma's lifetime is, one day of Brahma. So Brahma's, so one day of Brahma is called Kalpa, and one night of Brahma is also called Kalpa. So one Kalpa is 4.3 billion solar years, Earth years. So if you calculate Earth years, basically one Kalpa is 1,000 yuga cycles. You know, we have 4 yugas, right? So 4 times 1,000. So that is basically one day of Brahma, which equals to 4.3 billion years. So one breath of Mahavishnu is equals to 4.3 billion years. And it's also one day of Brahma, like that. So Narada Muni is saying, after I died, what happened is I entered into the body of Mahavishnu together with the rest of the universe, together with Lord Brahma, together with the rest of the universe at the end of the Kalpa. It so happened that it was the end of the Kalpa of that universe when I died. So at that time, together with everything, I entered into the body of Mahavishnu, Lord Narayana, as he lay down in the water. Then Brahma began to enter into him along with all creative elements. So this is what happens at the end of one Kalpa. So at the end of one Kalpa, Brahma enters back, he goes to sleep, and then he enters into the body of Mahavishnu. The entire universes which were created by Brahma, all of them also collapse, and all of them also enter, all the material elements which were used to create the universes, they all also enter into the body of Mahavishnu, waiting for Mahavishnu to again exhale. So when he exhales, again the universes, the bubble is created. Brahma is born again. Brahma is he awakes again, and then he continues to continue the day. So Brahma enters into the body of Mahavishnu, right, at the end of his kalpa. And together with Brahma, I also entered through his Anupranam. Anupranam means breathing. So by his breathing, I also entered into the body of Mahavishnu. So this is Narada Muni is telling. So after Sahasra Yuga, after again another 1000 Yuga cycles, which is another 4.3 billion years, which is equal to one night of Brahma, right? Again, after one night of Brahma, so during the night of Brahma, everything is dissolved. Everything is entered into the body of Mahavishnu. And then when the day of Brahma comes, Brahma again wakes up and the universes again appear as it appeared before. So after 1000 Yuga cycles, the night of Brahma has ended. Then Brahma awoke to create again by the will of the Lord. So then when Brahma creates, again, his sons are also there. All the rishis like Marichi, Angira, Atri, Daksha. So these are all the sons of Brahma. They are called the Prajapatis because their role is to populate the universe. So therefore, all the sons of Brahma are also born. And then they are born through the mind of Brahma. They are called Manasa Putras. Through the mind of Brahma, they are born. And Narada Muni is also a son of Brahma. So at that time, I also appeared along with the other rishis. So this is the story of the Dasiputra. Previous life Dasiputra, then he died and then waited until the next Kalpa when Brahma is again awakes. And at that time, again, the sons of Brahma are created. And at that time, this Dasiputra took the form of Narada Muni. And this Narada Muni's form is different from all the rest of the Dasiputras. Because his form alone is transcendental, is spiritual. It's not material at all. Even Brahma's form is material. But though he comes from Brahma, he was already spiritual. He's just waiting to come out through the agency of Brahma, that's all. So Narada Muni's form is transcendental. So therefore, Prabhupada in his purport, he quotes, he says that Janma Karma Chami Divyam, right? Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, Krishna says, my birth and activities are all transcendental. So Prabhupada expands this. He says, not only the Lord's births and activities are transcendental, the pure devotees who are the confidential servants of the Supreme Lord, their birth and their activities are also transcendental. Janma, they are just like the Lord. That's why Bhagavan is Bhagavat. Bhagavat can mean the Lord. Bhagavat can also mean the devotees, the pure devotees of the Lord. So they are all transcendental. So therefore, Prabhupada says, the birth and pastime of Narada Muni, being a pure devotee of the Lord, is also transcendental. It's not ordinary. So we get the same benefit of hearing the pastimes and the birth of the Lord, just also by hearing the pastimes and birth of the pure devotees. So no difference. The benefit we get from hearing the pastimes of the Lord, the same benefit we also get by hearing the pastimes of the pure devotees of the Lord. So that's why, hearing about the Pandavas, hearing about Prahlad Maharaj, hearing about Narada Muni, all these things are very transcendental. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is full of Bhagavat Katha. Bhagavat Katha means Katha of Bhagavan Krishna and Katha of Bhagavat, the pure devotee of Krishna. So both of these make up the complete Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore, there's nothing else other than these two inside. And that's the perfection of religion. So I also appeared along with them, Narada Muni says. So Prabhupada says, Sri Narada is eternally free to move in all parts of the transcendental and material creations of the Almighty. So Narada Muni's form is very special. Number one, he is spiritual. His body is spiritual. The soul and the body is no different. It's basically the same spirit, right? Body and soul is one. That is in the spiritual level. So though he was in the material world, just like when the Lord comes to the material world, the Lord is also transcendental and spiritual. In the same way, Narada Muni alone amongst all the other jivas is transcendental and spiritual. He has received perfection already. And Prabhupada continues, he appears and disappears in his own transcendental body, which is without distinction of body and soul, unlike conditioned beings. So this is what I just mentioned just now. And Prabhupada continues, Sri Narada is eternally free to move in all parts of the transcendental and material creations. This is repeating. He appears and disappears in his own transcendental body, which is without distinction of body and soul. And the birth of Narada as the son of Brahma is also transcendental pastime. So all this we discussed just now. And Narada Muni continues his narration. Since then, after his appearance as Narada Muni, after receiving his form, so this happened in the current, what do you call, there are 14 Manus. So the Dasi Putra was born in a previous Manu. So after that Manu was completed, that's why after that period of Manvantara was completed, then when Brahma awoke again, a new Manu was created, and that is Swayambhuva Manu. So during Swayambhuva Manu, this is our present Manu. Then Narada Muni, I think Swayambhuva is the present Manu. I'll double check on that. But anyway, so therefore Narada Muni then he appears in this present form in this current Manu. So since then, by Anugraham Mahavishnur, I travel everywhere without restriction, Avigata. So he's telling what are his Aishwarya. Narada Muni talks about his Aishwarya. What are the boons that he has received from the Supreme Lord? He is able to travel anywhere and everywhere without restriction. The word Avigata is used, without restriction. No one can stop him. That's why Hiranyakashipu cannot stop Narada Muni from coming to see him. Ravana cannot stop him from coming to see him. All the demons couldn't stop him from coming to see him, and they couldn't harm him also. That's why Narada Muni can say whatever he wants to say with impunity. Right? There's nobody who can harm him because his body is spiritual, whereas the rest of them are material. So it cannot do anything to it, Narada Muni. So he's like a free agent of the Lord. And his purpose is to plant devotion in the living entities. So we already heard about this in chapter 3. He's a Bhakti avatar, right? He's a Satyavesh avatar, and he Satyavesh avatar representing the Bhakti Shakti of the Lord. So his ability is to give Bhakti freely to everybody. So since then, by the mercy of the Lord, Anugraham of Mahavishnu, by the mercy of that Purusha avatar, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world, Anta, and in the three divisions of the material world, Bahi. So he travels unrestrictedly both in the Anta and Bahi, in the spiritual world as well as the material world. Of course, spiritual world, it is beyond the Paravyoma, right? Vaikuntha Lokas, Mathura, Dwaraka, Ayodhya, all the different dhams, and of course Goloka, Vrindavan, the topmost dham. That's all the spiritual world, which is 3/4 of creation. And then in one small corner, there is 1/4 of creation, which is the material world, the Bahi. Bahi means external energy. So in this material creation, in this material world, right, we have 14 planetary systems, starting from Brahmaloka, Satyaloka. Brahmaloka is also known as Satyaloka, then Janaloka, Mahaloka, Tapaloka, like that. There are all the different higher planetary systems. And then there is the middle planetary systems, which includes Earth. And then there is the lower planetary systems, which includes the Bilva Swarga. Bilva Swarga means the hellish heavenly planets. That means the lower planetary systems, the planets of the demons. It is also heavenly. A lot of opulence is there, but the consciousness is low. It's not spiritual. So these 14 planetary systems are sometimes commonly described as Triloka. Triloka. Bhu, Bhuvar, Swarga. Right? So the three divisions are commonly known as Bhu, Bhuvar, Swarga. So Prabhupada describes another way of describing the three divisions, the Urdhva Loka. Urdhva means topmost planetary systems, the higher planetary systems, the Madhya Loka, the in-between, the midway planetary systems, and the Adoloka, the downward, the lower planetary systems. So these are the collection of planetary systems. So we won't talk about in detail now about these planetary systems. This is very much described in Canto 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam, where they clearly talk about the divisions, how Earth planet is in a plane, in a dimension plane, like you see here in the middle. This dimension, this plane is called Bhuloka, or sorry, Bhumandala. Mandala means circle. So a flat circle. So within that Bhumandala, one of the planets there is Bhuloka, Earth. And at the center of Bhumandala, there is Mount Meru. And in the sky above Bhumandala is the heavenly planets. So at the top of Meru, at the top of Mount Meru is Swargaloka. So from Swargaloka, then above Swargaloka, here you can see the heavenly planets which are floating above Bhumandala. So Bhumandala is the midway planetary system. And below the Bhumandala, that's where is the underground, the subterranean planets, the subterranean planetary systems. This is the lower planetary systems. So this Narada Muni, he can travel everywhere. So from Bhumandal to lower planetary system to higher planetary system effortlessly. How he travels? Not by entering a spaceship. He just has to think of the place in his mind. So by the speed of mind, he is able to travel. So that is the special ability of Narada Muni. So this is because, so he's able to travel like this, and he has all these potencies. Narada Muni says, this is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. So therefore, he receives this Aishwaryam, these special abilities, these wonderful qualities, simply by the grace of the Lord. Not by his own mystic endeavor or anything like that. By the grace of the Lord, he is given this anugraha of all mystic perfection. So that is the wonderful position of Narada Muni. So then he continues, and thus I travel. And what does he do as he travels? I constantly sing Gayamanaha. So this is what Narada Muni does. He sings. The word Gayamana means singing. And what does he sing? Hari Katham. The transcendental pastimes, the names, forms, pastimes of the Lord. This is what he sings, vibrating this instrument called a veena, which is charged with transcendental sound, Swara Brahma. So this veena is transcendental. It's a special veena. And he says, this veena was given to me by the Supreme Lord himself. So there's a story about how Narada Muni received his veena. This is described in the Linga Purana. So it talks about how Narada Muni received this veena. But this veena, it was given by the Supreme Lord, and this veena is not ordinary. It's also transcendental, befitting the body of the Narada Muni, transcendental. And it carries Swara Brahma, transcendental sound. Just by strumming this veena and singing, he surcharges the whole, wherever he travels, with the devotional spirit. So that is his special potency. So Prabhupada says, Sri Narada Deva is always engaged in singing his transcendental glories and is therefore infallible in his exalted position. So this is just, so we are also following in the footsteps of Narada Muni. So just like Narada Muni, if we can also constantly remember and sing the pastimes of the name, the form, the pastimes of the Lord, then we will also be in the same position. We are infallible. Nothing can affect us from that exalted position. So our problem is we are not constant. We are chanchala. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. We have not come to that level. So Narada Muni has already achieved that perfection. So so then Prabhupada continues to say, he talks about how actually in the beginning of time, all this singing, philosophy, drama, all the arts, the arts, right? All the drama, beauty, everything, painting, all of this was initially introduced simply for the glorification of the Lord. So, but over a period of time, in the beginning, it was only used for the glorification of the Lord. The music meters, the swaras, the 7 swaras, Sari, Gama, Pada, Nisa, and all the different swaras that come with it, was initially used only in the glorification of the Supreme Lord. But later, as the different yugas transpired and the degradation of dharma took place, then all of these become corrupted also. So all this music and everything starts to become used for other purposes. Even now also we can remember, not so very long ago, I think about 100 years or so, even just 100 years or so, drama, all these arts, music, it was exclusively only for devotional practice, singing of glorification of the Lord. And then 50 years ago, there was some, it started, from deviation started to happen. Because at that time, there was just Mahabharata, there was just Ramayana, and then came television and all that. And then with that, people started thinking, oh, why only sing of the Lord? Why not sing about you? Why not sing about me? Why not sing about him? Let's not only look at Ramayana and Mahabharata. Let's create our own Ramayana, our own Mahabharata. So in this way, and then more and more, these songs and arts became more and more degraded. So now they sing about all kinds of nonsense. They sing about having illicit affairs, illicit activities. All this now is put into songs, and crude, bad words, and all these things are going into songs and arts. So anyway, that is showing the degradation of Kali. So then Narada Muni, he continues, Tirthapada means the lotus feet of the Lord, in which all the holy places reside, in which all the wonderful virtues and the holy places, all of them reside at the lotus feet of the Lord. Who is that? That is the Supreme Lord, Krishna. So one of the names of the Lord, Tirthapada. Tirthapada, the Supreme Lord, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear. Priya Shravaha. Priya means very pleasing, very dear. And so this is the quality of the activities and the pastimes of the Lord. So Tirthapada at once appears on the seat of my heart. The word Sigram is used. Even in Tamil, we use the word Sikram, Sikramava, right? It's coming from Sanskrit, Sigram. So the same word, the Lord Sigrama, immediately he appears at the seat of my heart. So this is what the Lord does. That's why pure devotional service at the level of prema, like how Narada Muni has achieved, is very rare, because the Lord gives himself to that person. So anytime Narada Muni thinks of the Lord, anytime he sings of the Lord, immediately the Lord is obliged to appear at the seat of his heart. So he's purchased. The Lord is purchased by the pure devotee. So that is the power of the pure devotee. He is able to capture the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his heart. And this is sung by also, there is Bilva Mangal Thakur. He also sings in one of his songs. There are two songs he's very famous for. Forgot the name. But in one of his songs, he writes how he has... we sing this also. Charu Vastakam, I think. This is the Lord. I have captured the Lord in the cage of my heart. He describes like that in his song. So this is done by the grace of the Lord. The Lord gives himself by his grace, by his own sweet will. So at once, Tirthapada appears on the seat of my heart. Darshanam yati chetasi. Chetasi means heart. And the darshanam, he gives darshan within the heart, as if called for, as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities. So Narada Muni, when he says this, he is very much moved, because he is describing how the Lord is so purchased to him. As if he is called for, he appears immediately. So Narada Muni is overwhelmed by this kind of reciprocation of the Lord. So then Prabhupada gives his purport. So therefore Prabhupada says, as soon as a pure devotee, very powerful statement he gives here, as soon as a pure devotee engages himself in the pure devotional service of hearing, chanting, and remembering the name, fame, activities, the nama, rupa, lila of the activities of the Lord, what happens? At once, the Lord becomes visible to the transcendental eye of the pure devotee. Why? Because Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santasadeva Hridaya Loka. So the eyes of the devotee is tinged with the ointment, with the kajal of pure prema. Prema Anjana. Anjana means the kajal, the ointment. What kind of ointment? Ointment of prema. Because of the ointment of prema which smears the eyes of the pure devotee, he is able to see the Lord appearing within the heart. So he becomes visible to the transcendental eyes of the pure devotee by reflecting himself. So how does he do it? Here's the technical part, how he does it. Reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart by spiritual television. So this is very interesting. So basically we know, right? Paramatma is in the heart. So Paramatma is basically a reflection of the Shirodakashayi Vishnu, right? The Vishnu who is residing in the Shweta Dweep. Just like how light which hits upon a disco ball, it scatters the light everywhere. It looks like as if there's spotlights everywhere, right? Disco ball, a rotating disco ball. So in the same way, though locally situated in Shweta Dweep, Shirodakashayi Vishnu is able to reflect himself in every living entity's heart through his, so here Prabhupada says spiritual television. But for the pure devotee, that Shirodakashayi Vishnu, he becomes not just a neutral entity, he just, not just that he looks and does nothing, he interacts with the pure devotee directly. So that is the speciality. So what is pure devotee? So pure devotee, so what we have to do, we just have to engage in hearing, chanting and remembering the names and fame and the glory of the Lord. So what is that? Basically our sadhana, chanting and also hearing. And what do we hear? Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, these are the activities, name, fame, glory of the Lord. And a pure devotee. What does pure devotee mean? Pure devotee doesn't mean Uttama Adhikari necessarily, right? Pure devotee got 3 levels. Got Kanishta, got Madhya, and Uttama. But what does pure devotee mean? Pure devotee means one who is sincere in his effort to achieve pure devotional service only. That is a pure devotee. He has not come to that platform yet. He in his heart there is still material desire, but he knows that I don't want this material desire. I shouldn't want this. I should only want pure devotional service. How he knows this? Because he has heard Srimad Bhagavatam, he has heard classes. His heart has been convinced. Faith has developed in his heart. And as he does his bhajana, his chanting, and he does his service, the faith strengthens. And this faith tells him that, yes, I should only want this. I don't want name, I don't want fame, I don't want glory, I don't want anything else. I only want the pure devotional service of the Lord, 24 hours a day, the entire life after life. So this is, so one who thinks like that, or at least one who desires like that, right? That person is considered a pure devotee. So the description, the example is given like a mango. You know, if the right seed is planted in the heart, the seed will eventually grow into a tree and it will bear a fruit. So if the right seed, if the right mango seed is planted, then mango tree will grow. But if a different seed is planted, a seed full of material desire, a seed full of, other things, we want to come to Krishna consciousness because we want to achieve name, fame, glory, labha, puja, we want to get these things, then it will not be a mango tree, it will be a different tree. So it may be a very nice tree, you may get the very nice fruit, but it will never be the mango fruit which you want. So that's the thing. We need to purify our heart. We need to purify our knowledge first, our intelligence by hearing. And that will purify our heart with the right understanding so that we can desire the right thing. We can pray for the right thing from the Lord. So therefore, that is pure devotee. So a mango may be a green mango. We may not be Uttama Adhikari yet. There may still be material desires, but so long as there is sincerity in the heart, sincerity in the devotional service, how is sincerity measured? Sincerity is measured by our sadhana, right? So if one is sincere in chanting the 16 rounds daily, as much as possible, trying to hear, read Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, follow the instructions of the Guru, then that person is considered sincere. Even though he may make mistakes, so long as he repents, right? So that is pure devotee. So therefore, all of us who like to hear, right, we can also, Prabhupada tells us, there was once somebody asked Prabhupada, how many pure devotees are there, Prabhupada? Then Prabhupada asked, how many people are in this International Society of Krishna Consciousness? And that many pure devotees are there. Of course, at that time, during Prabhupada's time, everybody in the International Society of Krishna Consciousness was chanting 16 rounds. And every one of them was serving the Srila Prabhupada in various ways. So long as we do that, chant 16 rounds seriously and having the right understanding, then we can, by the grace of Prabhupada, he will bring us in this category as pure devotees. So then Narada Muni continues, it is personally experienced by me that those who are Atura Chittanam, What is Atura Chittanam? Here, we further expand upon what I just mentioned. Personally experienced by me, that those who are Atura Chittanam, very important for us. What is Atura Chittanam? Those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects. That means we want sense gratification. We are looking to satisfy our senses in some way. That is Atura Chittanam. And because of that, because of desiring contact of senses and their objects, the consequence is we become full of anxiety. So anxiety arises because we are always trying to satisfy our senses. And most of us fall in this category. So even people like this, people like us, Atura Chittanam, who are having material desires, trying to satisfy our senses, Narada Muni is saying, even such people, just like how I myself experienced, Narada Muni is saying, these people can cross the Bhava Sindhu. Bhava Sindhu is the ocean of material existence, the ocean of nations, the material existence. Even such people can cross the Bhava Sindhu. So this is hope for all of us, right? So long as there is sincere desire, so long as there is sincere understanding and endeavor, right? How we can cross? Narada Muni says, on a most suitable boat, plava. Plava means boat. On a most suitable boat. So even fallen people, even people who are in all of us basically in material sense gratification, wanting to satisfy our senses in various ways, we are not purified yet in our heart. So even people like us, right, which is majority of the people in the world, all of them can cross this ocean of material misery on the most suitable boat. What is that suitable boat? Just the suitable boat is called Haricharya Anuvarnanam. Haricharya Anuvarnanam. Haricharya Anuvarnanam. What is Haricharya? Haricharya means activities of Hari. That means anything to do with the with Lord Hari. What is anything to do with Lord Hari? Basically the name, the pastimes, the service, the form, the lila, the rupa. So any kind of activity connected to Hari, Haricharya Anuvarnanam. Anuvarnanam means constant recitation. What is constant recitation? Japa. Constantly chanting, constantly saying it. So anything to do with Hari. Haricharya Anuvarnanam. Constantly reciting name, fame, pastime, glory of the Lord, right? That is the boat where everyone can easily cross over the material. So this chanting of this Mahamantra is Haricharya Anuvarnanam. So either we chant congregationally or we chant fixed set of rounds daily. So this is sincere endeavor of Haricharya Anuvarnanam. And hearing Bhagavatam, this is also Haricharya Anuvarnanam, because we hear the pastimes. What we hear in Bhagavatam, nothing more but glorification of these things, which is connected to Hari and his devotees. So this is the boat. This is the most suitable boat of Haricharya Anuvarnanam, which is suitable for the population of Kali, right? And Narada Muni is again establishing, by my own example, I was also like this. But because I had this association of these great devotees, the Bhakti Vedantas, and we also have association with Bhakti Vedanta Swami through his books, right? And his disciples, the devotees and all that. So therefore, we also can follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni. So Narada Muni continues, it is true that by other processes like the Jnana path, by Yama Adibihi, Yoga Patai, by the yoga path of Yama. Yama means do's and don'ts, Yam, Niyam, the Ashtanga Yoga, it follows the path of do's. It starts with Yama and Niyama, do's and don'ts, right? Then after that, there is asana, right? Asana means to sit in posture. Then there is what do you call pranayama, controlling the breathing. Then there is pratyahara, which is rejecting all things sensual. All this mechanical process. So it is true that one can get relief from the disturbances of karma, lust, and lobha, greed, desires, right? By following the yoga path. But this is a mechanical path. And this path is also available. Yes, there are two paths. Remember always, there is two paths. Yoga, there are two paths to yoga. The jnana path, which is the mechanical, difficult path, and there is the bhakti path, which is the easy, quick path. So again, Narada Muni is just for the full completion, he is briefly mentioning the other path. It is true that you can also get relief from the yoga path, right? This is the yoga path, right? Yam, niyam, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, then meditation, then samadhi, right? And all of this eventually only so that they can see Paramatma within the heart. And then they come to bhakti, which is a very long process, difficult process. So then Narada Muni is saying, though this path of yoga, Ashtanga yoga, can also give you freedom from karma and lobha, desire. It can also give you liberation, right? Liberation it can give you. But, right? So Prabhupada here talks about how this karma and lobha are like poisonous snakes. You know, when we have poisonous snakes, right? We can try to control the poisonous snakes by you know, a snake charmer. A snake charmer will try to control poisonous snakes by playing his instrument, but he has to be constantly playing the instrument. The moment he stops playing the instrument, the snake will immediately wake up and it will attack. Again, it will come. So this yoga process of Ashtanga yoga is like the snake charmer. He has to constantly be vigilant, and he has to practice this very mechanically, very difficult. And even after so much of control also, even a little bit of deviation, a little bit of letting the guard down, he can completely fall down. There are so many examples, just like Vishwamitra Muni, you know, how Vishwamitra Muni, he wanted to achieve the same position as Brahma Rishi. And because of that, he did very difficult penance. He was doing penance, but he had desire in his heart to achieve material things, material desires. So he did this with great austerity. And then, you know, the Devatas, they wanted to disturb him because they didn't want him to achieve his desire because it would disturb their position, they thought. So they sent Menaka down. And Menaka, this Vishwamitra Muni, his eyes were closed. She shut his eyes because he didn't want his eyes to be distracted by sense gratification. But he couldn't shut his ears. So when Menaka walked, she had ankle bells. And simply by the way she walked in such a way that the tinkle of the ankle bells was so mesmerizing for him that he lost his guard. He opened his eyes and then he saw Menaka. His mind was already disturbed, and that's it. He gave up his yoga path and he continued and he married Menaka and lived for a long time. So this is what happens. Like that, there are many. There are other many examples of rishis who have tried this yoga path. It's very difficult, and it's not, especially not meant for the age of Kali, right? But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul. So Narada Muni says, yes, it's possible. You can control your karma and your lobha by Ashtanga yoga, by the yoga path, by jnana, by gyan, right? But even though you may control your karma and your lobha, your greed and your lust, it is not sufficient. This yoga path cannot give you atma da na samyati. It cannot give you Atmada Samyati. See here, the word na is used. Atma Ada Samyati, satisfaction of the soul. This is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul. Because the goal of Ashtanga Yoga is ultimately to open their eyes to see the form of Paramatma, and from Paramatma, wanting to desire to see, to understand more about the origin of Paramatma, Bhagavan, to develop a relationship with Bhagavan, to serve Bhagavan. That is the actual thing which will give satisfaction to the soul. That is the goal ultimately of Ashtanga Yoga. So Narada Muni is again mentioning this point, right? So you see, so many times these points are mentioned so that we are convinced. So then he continues, for this satisfaction, so where will we get this satisfaction of the soul? Now you see this, who controls these snakes? Effortlessly, the one who controls the snake is the Supreme Lord, right? So this is the pastime of Kaliya. So Krishna easily, effortlessly controlled the venomous snake, Kaliya, by simply dancing on the head of the Kaliya serpent. So if we can serve this Supreme Personality, the Kaliya Damana, the master of Kaliya, right, then we will also be able to control the serpents of our senses effortlessly by the grace. So it's not by our own effort. It is by the grace of Krishna. So very different from compared to the Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is by our own effort. How long we are going to be vigilant? Whereas in devotional service, in bhakti, one simply has to surrender to the Lord does the rest, right? So for this satisfaction of the soul is derived only from Mukunda Sevaya, from the service of the one who gives liberation. Mukunda means one who gives liberation. So the one who even gives liberation is Mukunda. So by serving that personality, then one gives satisfaction of the soul. Simply by attaining liberation, one doesn't get satisfaction of the soul because material desires are still there. One is free from sin, yes, but material desire, the desire to lord over matter is still in the heart. But if that is completely transformed into Krishna Prema, then Mukunda Sevaya is achieved. Then satisfaction of the soul is automatically achieved. So we have the example of Haridas Thakur, who had already achieved Mukunda Sevaya. And even though there was a prostitute who was sent to disturb him, Maya Devi herself came as the prostitute to disturb Haridas Thakur. But unlike Vishwamitra, Haridas Thakur was fixed in his Mukunda Sevaya, in Hari Charya Anuvarnanam. He was not disturbed at all. In fact, he converted Maya Devi into his disciple. So that is the glory of devotional service. So, in conclusion, Narada Muni tells, O Vyasadev, you are sinless. You are also liberated. In fact, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead also. Indirectly, Vyasadeva is saying. But he's saying, you are sinless, Anaga. You are Anaga. Anaga means sinless. Thus, I have explained my Janma Karma Rahasyam, the secrets, the mystery of my birth and activity, as you asked. So who is qualified to hear this? So one who is sinless. So therefore, we can also, though we are not sinless, but by sitting on the boat, that's why Narada Muni said, right? Even though we have material desires, simply by taking shelter of that boat of Hari Anuvarnanam, one will come to the platform of sinlessness. And then one will be able to understand the rahasyam, the secrets, the mysteries of the janma and karma of the pure devotee as well as the Supreme Lord. So we simply have to follow the process and we will come to that point. All this will also be conducive for your Atma Toshanam. So this Janma Karma Rahasyam is not simply for our pastime, simply for passing our time. It is also for our satisfaction of our Atma. This very process which purifies us, which is hearing the Janma Karma Rahasyam, that very same thing, while purifying us, also at the same time satisfy our Atma, satisfies our soul. Because our soul becomes very satisfied hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So this is the wonder of devotional service. The process and the goal is the same. It gives you, simply by following the process, we achieve Atma satisfaction. And at the end of the process, we achieve Atma satisfaction, we continue doing the process. So that is the wonderful the wonderful thing about devotional service. So then Sutta Goswami says, now Sutta Goswami is telling all this, right? Sutta Uvacha, thus addressing Vasavi Suttam is Vyasadev. So thus addressing Vyasadev in this way, Bhagavan Narada took leave. So here Narada is also called as Bhagavan. So Bhagavan is not only reserved for the Supreme Lord, it is also reserved for those who are in relation to the Lord, his pure devotees, who are endowed with great mystic opulences. They are also called Bhagavan. You remember Vyasadeva was also called Bhagavan. Narada Muni was also called Bhagavan. Of course, they are all Saktyavesh avatars also. And later on, other people also will be called Bhagavan in Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Shiva will also be called Bhagavan. But there is only one Swayam Bhagavan. Now, that is Supreme Lord, that is Krishna, right? So Narada Muni took leave of Vyasadeva and vibrating on his Veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will. So this is Narada Muni, the real free person. If you read the purport, Prabhupada talks about how real freedom is achieved by only the pure devotees. So what do they mean by real freedom? Because they are free from the vagrancies of their desire. They are free from becoming slave of their lust and their greed. They are free from karma. They are free from the effect of time, kala. And they are free from the material conditioning, the three modes of material nature. So therefore they are really free, because the three modes controls everyone, right? And the lust and the desire guides every living entity. But a pure devotee is free of all this. So he is the one who is really free. And therefore, because he is free, he is able to travel anywhere and everywhere without restriction, just like how Narada Muni is able to do so. So, and then we come to the final verse. Aho Devarishir Danyo Ayam Yat Kirtim Sarangadhanvanaha Gayan Madhyan Idam Tantraya Ramayati Aturam Jagat. All glory and success to Srila Narada Muni, because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead. So Sutta Goswami is saying here, all glory and success, Aho Devarishi, all glory and success to Devarishi. Devarishi means the Narada Muni, another name for Narada Muni. Why? Because Yat Kirtim Saranga Dhanvanaha, because he is glorifying the activities, Kirtim, glorifying and the activities of the personality of Godhead wherever he goes. So the preachers, those who perform Harinam Sankirtan, those who glorify the name, pastimes of the Lord, then they are also following in the footsteps of Narada Muni. And Gayan Madhyan Idam Tantraya Ramayati Aturam Jagat. And so doing, by doing this activity, he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. So this is the ultimate activity of a pure devotee. So therefore now we have finished chapter 6. It's now 9:15, 9:16, right? So I'll just quickly go through what we have covered. So we talked about Narada's past life as Dasiputra and events after the initiation, how he traveled, and then he sat alone under a banyan tree. He meditated upon the Lord in his heart. The Lord appeared, and then he disappeared. And then he gave his instruction to Narada Muni. And Narada Muni, after that, went everywhere chanting the names of the Lord, perfected himself. From Bhava, he achieved Prema, and then he died, and how his death was instantaneous. He achieved spiritual perfection instantaneously. And in his next life, he came as the son of Brahma, Narada Muni. And we heard about his Aishwaryam, how he is able to travel everywhere within even the material world as well as the spiritual world unrestrictedly. We heard about his Aishwaryam, and we heard about his Swasmin Bhavam. Swasmin Bhavam means his wonderful relationship and reciprocation by the grace of the Supreme Lord. How simply by immediately he thinks of the Lord, he chants the name of the Lord by his sweet will automatically appears within the heart of Narada Muni, giving Narada Muni darshan and satisfying Narada Muni fully. His becomes Atma Stosaram, becomes fully satisfied in Atma. So we heard about that by the wonderful grace of the Lord to Narada Muni, how Narada Muni got a spiritual body. And we heard the conclusion of Narada Muni. What were the conclusions? Narada Muni spoke, right? Hari Charya Anuvarnanam. So anyone within this material world, those who have desires also, material desires, material sense gratification, who are running after that, even these people can take benefit by the boat of Hari Charya Anuvarnanam, simply by the activities of chanting, hearing, remembering, serving the Supreme Lord. Any activity to do with the Supreme Lord. And in this way, they are able to cross the Bhava Sindhu Sagara, the ocean of material nescience, right? And how we can understand the path of bhakti alone gives full Atma Ada Samyati, full satisfaction to the soul. And therefore, Narada Muni tells Vyasadev, please recite the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in this way, everyone can take shelter of Hari Charya Anuvarnanam. And saying this, he disappears. So therefore, now we have covered the history of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we started in chapter 4. So the history, how Srimad Bhagavatam came to be from the beginning till the end has been fully narrated. And after this, chapter 7 onwards, it will become, there will be, things will move in a faster pace, where we will see other questions of the sages in Naimisaranya being answered. Because they asked, right? They wanted to know more about Krishna. They wanted to, please tell us more about Krishna and his pastimes. Then they also said, please tell us about the speaker of, the one who heard Bhagavatam. The speaker they already described, Vyasadev we already talked about. The one who heard Bhagavatam, Sukadev Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj. So he will also be described towards the end. So all this will come about later, and we will go into chapter 7 the next session. So we will end chapter 6 here. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So if there are any questions, well, we can try to answer.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Naveen Prabhu. Yes.
Oh, I have a question. Not a question, like solution. Okay, so okay, because now when we approach or acquiring this knowledge, right, the spiritual knowledge about Krishna and everything, there exists a lot of avenues, a lot of groups that are offering this knowledge, correct? A lot of gurus. And when we are in this association, right, sometimes I myself, sometimes I have the thought like, I want to, sometimes I have the thoughts of being like going towards fame, like for example, taking a special task, or going up the ladder in the association itself. This kind of impurity. So I want to know how I can overcome or get rid of this. Is this a positive thing or a negative thing? And is this some of the anarthas that I need to get rid of?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the
Thank you, bro.
question. Hare Bol.
Thank you.
Actually, if you are thinking that way, that means you are advancing. Because most
Okay,
people won't even think that way. Most people they won't even think about name, fame. They just do their activities. They don't even realize that sometimes they are going towards searching for name, fame, glory, and all that. They don't realize it. So if you are even thinking that, sometimes, I shouldn't be thinking this way. This is, after all, name, fame, glory. So that is a sign of advancement. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, right, we should water the seed of the Bhakti Lata by our processes of, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, and all that. But at the same time, we should put fences around the Bhakti Lata. We should guard very carefully. So we should pray to the Lord, please give me that Divya Chakshus, this eyes, this vision of scripture, so that I can guard against this desire for name, fame, glory. There are 5 things we should guard against: Kutinati, Jivahimsa, Labha, Puja, and Pratishta. So Kutinati means duplicitous behavior. We say one thing and we do another thing, trying to manipulate people, duplicity. So these kind of things we should give up when we come in the association of devotees. It's something which we do in the material world in order to survive. But when we come to the spiritual part, we should completely give it up. So that's why we wash our feet when we enter the temple, right? It's also representing the idea that we give up this material mentality in leading with devotees and in the spiritual matter. Then there is Jiva Himsa. Jiva Himsa means to cause harm to another living entity. So this harm can come in the way of words, activities, action. So we need to be sensitive. We need to be more civilized and refined in our behavior. Sometimes our actions may cause harm. So we need to be more vigilant. And then comes Labha. Labha means gain. Some people come to devotional service, some people come to ISKCON because they think they can make some material benefit out of it. What they didn't achieve in the material world, they think that they can achieve it in the society. So they come with the idea of making profit. They want to get profit from devotees. They want to, somehow get something for themselves, profit, material, tangible profit. So that is something we should guard against. And then there is puja. So puja is another thing. In devotional service, there are many types of services. Some services, they take limelight. As soon as one does a service, everybody will say, wow, so nice and everything. So we also know such services, services like kirtan, services like giving classes, even sometimes services like doing puja. Oh, I'm doing puja, let everybody do, in the middle of a class, somebody comes and does puja, then everybody will look at them, and then you'll say, wow, how nice, how gracefully, you see, I'm turning my hand. So this kind of mentality might come in the mind. Or even someone is cooking, they may say, so they want some kind of adoration. They want people to glorify them. So therefore, they invite glorification. Sometimes in glorifying other people, they glorify themselves. Or in giving class, they glorify themselves. So sometimes these kind of mistakes are there. We should guard against. And then the last one is pratishta. Pratishta is distinction. I need to be special. The desire to be special. Not necessarily that people glorify me, but people should at least know I'm special. Nobody can make barfi like that person. I've tasted so many other barfis, yes, but that barfi is special. So that kind of distinction we should guard against. So to answer your question, is there a special thing to do? The more we chant, the more we are sincere in our service, and the more we pray to the Lord to make us aware of these things. Give me the eyes to see these things and help me to pull out these weeds. These are like weeds, which grow together with the Bhakti Lata, which if we don't pull it out, if we are not vigilant constantly and pulling it out, then it will choke the Bhakti Lata. So that's what we need to do. So it's a good thing that we begin to see this in ourselves. We shouldn't look at it so much in other people. We should look at it in our own self. We are not perfect. We should understand we have many things, many flaws. So the more we introspect within ourselves, why are we really doing this service? What is the real reason we are doing this? Try to introspect it each time, and that will help. And as we are thinking this way, we must put certain fences within our mind. We can put certain limits. I will not cross this limit. I will only do this much, and I will not go beyond that because it's dangerous for me. I may start, or why should I only do this kind of services? Let me go to other services which are not so. There should be a balance. So in this way, we need to constantly guard against it. And good association is very, very useful, especially if you have your husband or your wife or your guru who can tell you, hey, I know you simply doing this because you want name, fame, right? So they will tell you, So when they tell you, then it's good for us. Then we can help to see. So it's basically constant vigilance. We need to guard against this very carefully. Hope that answers your question, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, sorry. I've been coughing for 3 weeks. Mayapur dust and the cold. Anyway, any other questions? Okay, if there are no questions, you can also type your questions in your chat or you can put it in your WhatsApp. Happy to answer. So now it's 9:30. So if there are no more questions, then thank you very much for attending the session. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to all the devotees. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much,
Hare
Prabhu. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.